Hello everyone, this is Pal Ponder on Weather. In this update, we've got a very active setup over the next couple of weeks. First with severe weather, followed by very heavy snow, then an Arctic blast trails on the backside, and we turn much colder in the second half of December. So let's take a look at the overall setup going forward. You can actually see we actually had record rainfall yesterday into the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. All that rain is pushed southbound. Now it's set up over the Houston Metroplex this morning, and we even got pockets of flood advisories down here further to the south, where they have picked up 3 to 5 inches of rain into portions of southern Louisiana and into New Orleans. And that same storm system will continue to traverse across into portions of the southeast. At the same time, we've got much colder air filtering in out west. These areas in pink are your winter storm warnings. Man, they picked up so much snow into portions of the Sierra Nevadas. And as you extend into portions of the upper Midwest here, yeah, those areas in blue, you're talking maybe 7 to 15 inches of snow coming up for portions of Rapid City, into Pierre, into Bismarck, places into Fargo, into Grand Forks, into Minot, and all these areas into purple. Those are your winter weather advisories. These areas could pick up easily another 1 to 4 inches of snow. And yes, there is a pocket of areas down here towards Albany, into Scranton, back into Bridgeport, up here in this area. That area also could pick up another 1 to 4 inches of snowfall over the next 2 days. So it's all compliments of this storm system, this renewed trough that's going to be coming in off the west coast. This is our big weather maker for the week, as this is going to be basically a coast to coast storm, bringing severe weather in portions of the Arklatex, but heavy snow to the north as this traverses across from west to east. So right now, take a look at some of the temperatures. It's all the true Arctic air is really bundled up in Canada. It's cold, guys. We're talking upwards to 38 below zero. And that is just waiting in the wings of this transition that will be taking place, because further south, we still are in the warm sector, complements of that southeast ridge. But with that trough coming in from west to east, that's going to make the transition. So once this moves across, all that colder air will be able to plunge southbound into the lower 48, and it will be a step down process, but I promise you it's going to get colder and colder as we transition deeper into December. So I appreciate all my followers out there and my new followers. If you are new to the channel and like detailed weather content on North America, all you have to do is hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily updates. And when I go live, which I will be going live on Tuesday for this significant severe weather event that we're going to be talking about. So let's go over the details here. First, we're talking about winter storm impacts on the extreme side. I don't know if you've seen the snow up here in Donner Pass up there, but man, they're picking up in feet of snow in the Sierra Nevadas, and we're talking extreme impacts in this neck of the woods. But all these areas in yellow, we're talking minor impacts. But once you get up here in the Dakotas, yeah, we could be upwards to maybe possibly major impacts over the next 3 days as this system comes across, and they're expecting very heavy snow, if not blizzard conditions, up here into portions of Nebraska, getting into South Dakota. And yes, there's also that pocket where they are going to pick up that 1 to 4 inches of snow up here into upstate New York. So let's highlight the snowpack. This is significant. And a couple days ago, it was actually at a 56-year high for this time of year. This is the Northern Hemisphere snowpack, as it's been really building really since September, and it continues to build further south into the lower 48. And we've got all that renewed snow that's going to be laying the groundwork for the step down process for a much colder setup as we get into the second half of December. So let's highlight the overall precipitation just in the next 24 hours. So this is between now and Monday morning. So yeah, we are going to have that renewed trough that's going to be coming in off the west coast. That's the beginning stages, going to be laying some more healthier rains into California. San Diego, today's your day. Los Angeles, today's your day to get the rain. Or you could be picking up an inch of rain out of this deal as this comes across there's that storm system that we highlighted now over Houston, heading towards Louisiana, getting in portions of the southeast, and all this should be in the form of mixed precipitation or even snow over the next 24 hours. So, but here's the severe weather setup that we actually been highlighting for the last couple of days. We're going to be fine tuning this over the next couple of days as well, but it looks to be on Tuesday as we go into the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's just going to be the beginning stages. It looks to be a kind of a morning setup here, just as this system kind of really gets going, but it's not really until you get into the afternoon hours out towards East Texas, but especially into the Arklatex, where they do have that enhanced risk for severe storms, especially along the Arkansas and Louisiana border. Easily all three modes of severe weather are on the table, and that definitely includes tornadoes. So let's break this thing down for you and highlight the hazards, because yes, I think one of the main impacts from this particular setup is going to be the tornadic setup with the rotation, all the shears that's going to be happening with the at the lower levels, with this dramatic jet stream that's going to be coming in, tapping into this warm sector. So all these areas in green, that's kind of like your marginal risk. That's the formidable just beginning stages of this particular setup, was basically, you know, right along Dallas, but essentially into East Texas. But once you get into far extreme East Texas, that's when it could be a little bit more elevated, more severe. Definitely a possibility starting to include some strong tornadoes, but especially as you get into the Arkansas into Louisiana border there, that's where I'm most concerned about very strong tornadoes in this setup. And then also we're talking wind too, with this kind of squall line that comes across. We could be looking at some significant winds up here as well. And the hail threat is too. So you do have all three modes of severe weather, but the most concerning aspect of this storm will be the tornadic setup with this particular event, and that will be on Tuesday. But once we go into Wednesday, this just transitions a little bit further off into the southeast. I think the warm sector more or less, it gets compacted further south, because they are going to be feeling the effects of this cold front. But further south, this is on Wednesday, into New Orleans, portions of southern Mississippi, getting into southern Alabama, going into portions of the Florida Panhandle. That is kind of your bullseye highlighted from the Storm Prediction Center, where it's most favorable to get that severe weather for them. But once we get up into Tennessee and Kentucky, this could be just marginal risk, right? That's probably more or less marginal type activity, transitioning to more of a gustier winds type setup for them. But mainly the impact, the highest impact, is going to be in this zone on Wednesday. So now let's talk about the cold side to the system, because there's definitely going to be some snow, and some heavy snow, and that's why they've got those winter storm watches in place. And all this on the tail of the shrimp, that I like to call it, always on the tail side, that's what this severe side. And once you transfer in the middle of it, that's kind of your windier, gustier wind side. But once you get up north, and especially northwest of that low pressure center, where it really starts to tighten up in Nebraska and South Dakota, that's where they've got those major winter impacts in this up area. We're talking blizzard-like condition. Wind gusts could be upwards to 55 miles an hour up here, as the snow is just cranking, laying it down in inches and upwards to almost a foot up here as we, highlight this area. So as we move going to Wednesday, there's that storm system on the southern side. I highlighted the severe stretch on the southeast side. But once the snow really wraps around that low pressure, it's really going to be ringing out that heavier snows. And that's when you could easily start calculating this totals up into portions of the foot range up here into South Dakota, getting into North Dakota, and that will swing across into portions of Minnesota by then. But once we transfer into Friday, this squall line will be more or less off the East Coast. Now we're just waiting on more of the colder air coming in on the backside, and that's the indication where that red line is. That's your more or less freezing line. So that gives you an indication of the much colder air that transitions on the backside. So once we have more colder air filtering in from the north, that's going to increase the snow amounts up here. So it's just kind of waiting on this colder air, but all the heavier snows on Friday will be up over Minnesota, getting over Wisconsin. That will swing across into portions of Iowa, getting into portions of northern Illinois. I know you guys in Chicago be like, hey, where's my snow? Where's it at? Like, hey, Friday. It's coming. It's coming on Friday, okay? Just be patient. So on the backside, there's temperatures on Friday. It's going to be plenty cold enough. So as this comes across, here's the transition. You can see the step down process of some of that Arctic air tries to ooze down from Canada. And this will be just the beginning stages of a much colder type setup that we'll transition into the second half of December. So as we transfer into Saturday, so here's your setup for Saturday. You can see the freezing line well to the south here, and all the snow will be cranking. And then once we get the cold air mixing in up into the northeast, it's all snow, baby. We got all snow in upstate New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire. The snow is going to be adding up in those areas. I promise you, back into Maine, we're going to be getting some healthier totals definitely on the table. Once that cold air gets entrenched in this setup, there's the overall snowfall totals over the next 7 to 10 days, and definitely a good healthy snowpack coming across, but especially into the Dakotas, into Minnesota, going into Wisconsin. Look at that, guys, in the graph on the right bottom corner of the screen. You're talking a foot, maybe upwards to possibly some isolated spots. 2 feet of snow is definitely not out of the question. But even up here in upstate New York and get it into Vermont, New Hampshire, in these areas, you've been like, hey, where's all my heavier snow? Okay, you're going to be like, okay, when's the snow going to stop? Because we're going to be measuring the snow in feet up here. By the time we get to the end of this weekend, here's the overall blend. So this is kind of your blend, and this is probably your most conservative look on the overall snowfall totals. But even that, when you blend all the models together, we're talking easily over a foot or two, almost 2 feet of snow. So there's going to be a lot of snow. And this is just going to lay the groundwork for what's to come beyond that. So once that filters in, once it compounds with that 56-year, Northern Hemisphere snowpack, compounding with the new snowpack that's going to be laying the groundwork, that pulls the colder air into the lower 48. And now you're talking all these areas into the lower 48 are going to be experiencing some below average temperatures. And once you do that, once you lay the groundwork, it's a step down process. So that brings the second phase of this setup as the much colder air, well below average temperature, starts to intrude into the Pacific Northwest, up into the northern central plains. But the significant thing is once the storm track goes much further south. So look at this, by the 17th to the 22nd time frame, yeah, we're talking heavy rain for Southern California into the Southwest and the desert Southwest. That's incredible, guys. That just gives you an indication that's going to put the storm track much further south. So guess what? With colder air in place as this comes across from west to east, right? It's going to transfer into snow, right? So we could be looking at some heavier snows from the 17th to the 22nd time frame along the Four Corners regions. But look at that, guys. Yeah, instead of further north, that's going to put the snow line further south. So now between the 18th and the 22nd time frame, places into Oklahoma, you have to be on the lookout for that snow over your area into the Texas Panhandle. North Texas probably on the fringes of this, into Arkansas, into Missouri, portions of southern Illinois, getting into Indiana. But the rain prospects are going to be much further south. So you got to feel, once that cold air gets entrenched in this setup, even this could be entrenched with some at least mixed precipitation at times, because there's going to be plenty of activity, further south with that active subtropical jet. Because behind that, we just have another reinforcing shot for the week leading up to Christmas, from the 18th to the 24th. That colder air continues to get colder, and that puts the storm track further south and just gets colder and colder. Because if you look at the ensemble guidance, that's extreme, guys. I mean, this is an ensemble for the 5-day period from the 21st through Christmas, right? When we're talking these anomalies upwards to almost 30 degrees below average temperatures over a 5-day period on an ensemble. That's some cold stuff. And that will be plunging southbound into the lower 48. So plenty of people want a cold Christmas. You're going to get it in a big way coming up this year. And here's the Canadian view. Plenty of cold air on the table by all the ensemble members. And the latest GFS is actually kind of maybe hinting at the P&A possibly trying to go neutral, if not even somewhat positive. If that happens, that would really plunge the colder air into the all the way down in the deep south into the Rio Grande Valley, and we could be looking at maybe some maybe severe weather, severe Arctic outbreak by then, by the time we get into that week leading up to Christmas. So it's a lot of interesting weather on the table over the next couple of weeks. I promise you, I will be here every day fine-tuning this going forward. But definitely follow me on Twitter, definitely follow me on Instagram and Facebook, so you can get all my coverage on a daily basis and catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.